Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudhiraye. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki krishnaya vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Namaha Pankajanabhaya Namaha Pankajamaline Namaha Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangriye. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter number 28, chapter entitled Krishna Rescues Nanda Maharaj. Verse number 6. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Brahmane Paramatmane Nayatra Shruyate Maya Loka Srishti Vikalpana. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Brahmane Paramatmane Nayatra Shruyate Maya Loka Srishti Vikalpana. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Brahmane Paramatmane Nayatra Shruyate Maya Loka Srishti Vikalpana. Matajis. Namaha, obeisances. Tubhyam, unto you. Bhagavate, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahmane, the Absolute Truth. Paramatmane, the Supreme Soul. Na, not. Yatra, in whom Shruyate is heard of. Maya, the illusory material energy. Loka, of this world. Srishti, the creation. Vikalpana, which arranges. Translation and purport by the servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. My obeisances unto you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Soul, within whom there is no trace of the illusory energy which orchestrates the creation of this world. Purport. The word Shruyate is significant here. Shruti or Vedic literature consists of authorized statements made by the Lord Himself or His enlightened representatives. Thus, neither the Lord nor recognized spiritual authorities would ever say that within the Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, there is the fault of illusion. Srila Sridhar Swami points out that the word Brahmane here indicates the Lord is full in Himself, and that the term Paramatmane indicates He is the controller of all living entities. Thus, within the Supreme Being, complete in Himself and omnipotent, we do not find any jurisdiction of the material illusory energy. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalitam Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Shay Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. First of all, I seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas that I be able to speak something. We are on a very elevated section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I really do not consider myself qualified to even touch this subject or speak of it. But since it has been given as a service, just taking a position as to serve the devotees, so I seek the blessings of each one. In this verse, it is Varun Dev who is addressing the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna. The sequence is, after the Govardhan pastimes are over, Nanda Maharaj one day in the early morning goes to have his bath in the river because it is the day of breaking the Ekadashi fast. The Dwadashi is approaching, and this happens to be a very short Ekadashi. Therefore, he has to go pretty early in the morning. But unfortunately, that timing is not an appropriate time to have his bath. So technically, as per the rules, he was having his bath at the wrong time. But in essence, he was doing the right thing because he didn't want to lose the effect of the Ekadashi Vrat. Sometimes there is a clash between spirit and the letter. Follow the rule in the spirit, not the letter. So here, the servant of Varun Dev, who has been described in the earlier verses as a demonic personality, demonic because he doesn't understand the higher significance. He makes a mistake and he arrests Nanda Maharaj for entering the water at an inappropriate time and takes him to the abode of Varuna, to the kingdom of Varuna. In the presence of Varuna, he presents him as an offender. Now, when the cowherd men accompanying Nanda Maharaj were unable to find him, they turned naturally to Krishna because that is the inherent tendencies of the Vrajavasis, because they are devotees of the highest order. So whenever there is a calamity, whenever there is a problem, rather than trying to solve it with their own effort, they directly approach the Supreme Lord. In our field of operation, we would first try to do what we can do. We would try to approach those who are around us, the influential persons. If it is a medical problem, we go to a doctor. Legal problem, we go to a lawyer. If it's some other issue, we go to a policeman or a political entity or a financially strong person, so on and so forth. We try so many methods. But here it is, they are setting an example. The person who is having all facilities at his command and who can make things happen is the Supreme Lord Krishna. But unfortunately, because of our forgetful nature, we do not think of Krishna first. But when all other avenues are closed, then we turn to Krishna. That is our conditioned state. And this is what Draupadi depicts. When Draupadi is in difficulty, she doesn't directly approach the Lord. She first approaches her husbands, then she approaches the king, then she approaches eminent personalities like Bhishma Dev, Kripacharya, Dronacharya. But when all the doors are shut, then she even tries to protect herself with her own abala. Abala means one who is not strong. That is how a woman is described. With her own hands. Against the strength of Dushasan. But ultimately, then she realizes the futility of all these actions. But the devotee in her comes to life. She calls out, Hey Govinda, Hey Krishna, Hey Murari. And immediately the Lord responds. The Lord responds with lightning speed, and He comes to her in the way in which it can help her. He doesn't come to her in person, but He comes to her in the form of unlimited clothing, because the Lord is unlimited. And there is nothing in this world which He is not. He is everything. The material energy, the spiritual energy are all His different manifestations. Vividhaya Shruyate. So therefore, that is His greatness. So here, the Brajavasis are also teaching us. When in difficulty, what should be the first thing to be done? Just turn to the Lord. rather than trying so many other things. Of course, it doesn't mean that we should not put in our efforts. That should be done. But starting with a prayer and then do what is best. Do the best and leave the rest to Krishna. So, when they don't find Krishna, when they don't find Nanda Maharaj, then they turn to Krishna and Balram. They go and tell him, oh, what can we do now? Krishna immediately understands the situation because he is the all-knowing personality and directly approaches the court of Varun Dev. And there he finds his father Nanda Maharaj sitting by the side of Varun Dev in a very respectable position. Varun Dev has understood who is Nanda Maharaj and he offers him all respect and obeisances, and he receives Krishna very, very jubilantly. And here is the prayers he is offering the Supreme Lord. Namastubhyam Bhagavate Brahmane Paramatmane Na yatra shruyate maya loka srishti vikalpana. He is offering his obeisances, Namastubhyam, and he addresses him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavate. Brahmane, that means, it's translated here as the Absolute Truth, and Paramatmane, the Supreme Soul. Atma, Paramatma. Param means Supreme. We are Atmas, Jivatmas. And then he says, he goes on to describe the quality of that Supreme Personality. Na yatra shruyate maya. He says that there is no trace of illusory energy in you, my Lord. That is the great qualification of the Lord. There is no other person like that. That is why he is distinguishing him by that feature. It is a distinguishing feature of the Lord. There is nobody else who is uncontaminated by Maya. And he says, Loka Srishti Vikalpana. That means, and it is this illusory energy which orchestrates the creation of this world. That means this entire world, I checked up the meaning of orchestrates in the dictionary and it is given, direct to produce a given effect. Means this illusory energy is directing this entire material world to create a given effect. And what is that effect? The effect is to make you forget Krishna. Maya. Illusory energy. So he says the Supreme Truth, the Supreme Absolute, to make you forget that. So it is but natural that as conditioned souls, we don't think of Krishna first. Because we are in such an environment. But then, there are remedial measures. That is the saving grace. So let us briefly try to understand what is these two predominant natures. One is known as material nature and the other is known as spiritual nature. So, material nature refers to that which pertains to matter. And sometimes when you ask people what is matter, generally, especially school and college students, they give this reply. Anything which occupies space. And of course, if you turn to the general science textbook, standard 6th or standard 7th, the definition of matter is that which is perceptible to the senses. It's very clear. So in contrast, what is spirit? That which is beyond the senses, not perceptible to the senses. Adhokshaja. And anything which occupies space is matter. So, spirit is that which transcends the boundary of space. It is not affected by space. And then, matter is subject to the influence of time. And spirit is independent of time. It's not subject to the influence of time. To understand these things, we have a very simple example which is given in the Bhagavad Gita itself. And that is, body is material or matter and soul is spirit. So if you apply these three conditions, you can see the body with your senses, but you cannot see the soul. Unfortunately, because you cannot see the soul, this entire material science neglects the soul. In the entire syllabus of MBBS, a doctor is supposed to be highly qualified from material standards. Yes, from material standards. But there is no mention of soul in the entire syllabus of MBBS. Why? Because you cannot see it in the microscope. You cannot watch it on the TV screen. You cannot catch it on an X-ray film. It is beyond the sensation. Therefore, they simply omit it, neglect it. But therefore, from the point of view of the scriptures, the highest of material knowledge, be it MBBS, be it PhD, be it BTech, MTech, or FRCS, or whatever degrees you may have, is classified under one single heading, and that is known as Agyan, ignorance. Because what is knowledge? Again, here it's interesting to know what used to happen in the earlier days. When children would grow up, they would be sent to the Gurukul. And the Gurukul probably, they may be teaching, but not so specifically subjects like history, geography, and trigonometry, and so many other things. But one thing they always used to teach in the Gurukul, and that is scriptures. That was the most important subject they would deal with. In fact, Radhika Raman, one of our pioneers in homeschooling, who came here some time back, it seems when he was doing his homeschooling, he was focusing on the Bhagavatam. Of course, he was doing the other subjects academically, which one has to do in today's time and age. But he was focusing more on the Bhagavatam. And he said that Bhagavatam has it all in a proper way that we need to know. So, this brings out more or less a clear understanding. And so, what was the subject matter of teaching and knowledge in those days, in the earlier days? This was prior to 1835, when Lord Macaulay intervened. That is also very interesting to know. Lord Macaulay, the Viceroy General or the Governor General of the British government, when he was in India, he travelled the length and breadth of India. And he has made a statement which is recorded in the British Parliament in the year 1835. He said, I travelled the length and breadth of India and I did not find a single beggar or a thief. And he said, you cannot subjugate these people with gunpowder. You have to subjugate their spirit. And the only way to do that is to show their faith in the scriptures as inferior and show this modern science as superior. And therefore, he says, we have to revolutionize the process of education in India. We have to introduce instruction in the medium of English. And then they recruited Indologists. The purpose of Indologists was not to study the Vedas, but to study the Vedas to find fault and to prove that they are wrong. And they did it. And to some extent, the damage was done. But somehow, this knowledge of the Vedic system is so strong, it is so resilient, that even today, if you ask young students who are qualified, who have studied in the English medium, who have done high degrees, and you ask them, do you believe Maruti is real? Do you believe Hanuman is real? A monkey who can fly across the sky, who can jump an ocean? According to the English version, it is mythology. Mythology means that which is not true. Just see how beautifully they have covered it up. Instead of telling it is lies, they just say it is mythology. And students proudly say, I am reading mythology. When they go to the library. And they think it is reading Ramayana and Mahabharata. But the actual inherent meaning is, it is all false. So, if you ask even young college students who come to the temple or anywhere you meet them, do you feel Ganpati is non-existent? Do you feel Ganesh is non-existent entity? Do you feel Maruti is a non-existent entity? They say no. We pray to them. We believe in them. This is the resilience of the Vedic spirit. This is our saving grace. So, for matter, contacting spirit is elevation. Like a material body, without life, without the soul in it, is only dead matter. It has no value. So when matter contacts spirit, when spirit is infused into a body, then it gains value. And for spirit, contacting matter is fall down. That is why birth in the material world is known as fall down. Martyu lokam vishanti. Tetam bhuktva swarga loke vishalam kshine punyam martyu loke vishanti. Vishanti means they fall down, they enter. Water is pure till it falls to the ground. But when it falls to the ground, it mixes with the mud. In the same way, the spirit is pure when it is uncontaminated with matter. But the minute it is mixed up with matter, then it is known as impure or contaminated. And that is what is our condition. We are jivatmas in a material body, and therefore we need to be purified. So if you have to drink the water which is fallen on the ground, the rainwater, then you have to take up the process of purification. And only after purification you can consume that water. Similarly, the Lord can accept us only when we are purified. Purified of what? Purified of material contamination. And what is the process? To purify water, the municipality uses chlorine tablets, or they introduce chlorine because it is a purifying agent. So the Lord has also given us a purifying agent. It is His own name. The Lord and His name are not different. So He says, take my name. It is a most purifying agent. And just by chanting my name, you can be purified. Just yesterday this question was asked by a college boy. Asked me, my uncle is telling me, I believe in God, I accept God as authority, but where is it necessary for me to go and chant His name? Here is the answer. Because in our present state we are contaminated, and until and unless we chant His name, we have no hope of getting purified. And what is the proof that chanting of the holy name purifies us? It's very simple. Born of this material body, we have material desires. And these material desires make us commit 4 activities which are known as pillars of sin. And they are intoxication, meat eating, illicit sex and gambling. These are all triggered by the material body. So when a conditioned living entity takes up to the process of chanting, then what is the result? As we can vouch for in our ISKCON society, anybody who has taken to the process of chanting in an authorized way, in a proper way, automatically finds that these urges which are there to commit these sinful activities, they automatically become subdued. They go down. And it is only because of this the devotees are able to follow the regulative principles. When I was new, I went and asked His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj, who was then Devamrit Prabhu. So this is the question I asked him. We are told that we should chant, and we are also told to follow the 4 regulative principles. But what is it which comes first? First we should chant, or first we should follow the 4 regulative principles? So he said you should do both, but first you should chant. Because if you chant, you can follow the regulative principles. And if you don't chant and follow the regulative principles, you will not be able to maintain it for a long time. Because, and both ways, if you chant and don't follow the regulative principles, it is like lighting the fire and then pouring water over it, if you don't follow the regulative principles. And if you are only following the 4 regulative principles without chanting, it is like not putting ghee in the fire. Then the fire cannot burn, not providing the fuel. So, they are interdependent, but at the same time, of the 2, chanting comes first. It is the more important activity. And then, a beautiful statement has been given here. It says, Sridhar Swami points out that the word Brahmane here indicates that the Lord is full in himself, and that the term Paramatmane indicates he is the controller of all living entities. Thus, within the Supreme Being, complete in himself and omnipotent, we do not find any jurisdiction of the material illusory energy. The word here used is complete in himself. The Lord is complete in himself. This is a very important term. How do you understand this? The very fact that we have these material desires means we are incomplete. This is contamination. And it is only with the help of the Lord that we can overcome these material desires. In ourselves, we don't have the strength to fight it. So we need that complete whole to save us. We are his parts and parcels. For one who delights in the soul, the attractions of the material world are only trash. God is self-satisfied. He is complete in himself and full. And a self-satisfied person is a godly person. The name of God is sweet music, and association of devotees is a festival. In Chaitanya Charitamrit, Nityanand Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, Haridas Thakur, Gadadhar Pandit, Srivas Thakur, Murari Gupta, how they enjoyed each other's company. How the 6 Goswamis enjoyed, they relished the company of each other and other saintly personalities. And taking the contrast on the other side. In this world, also we say, there is a famous statement which says, birds of the same feather flock together. So, there is one group which is a very strong group. You know which is that group? Those who like to drink. They have a mutually strong binding friendship. What is that binding factor? They all drink. Once I was traveling in a train from Pune to Bombay, and there was a group of people, and they were like regular travelers, they travel for work from Pune to Bombay, and one of those persons, he said, I just met that other group, he said, ते पण आपल्यासारखे सगळे पिबंडू आहेत. Means that group also, like us, a strong group, are all habitual drunkards. And what is club? Club is generally a place where you can sin with dignity. Because when you go to a club, that's what you find generally. These are the activities that people indulge in. Breaking the 4 pillars or the 4 regulative principles. But then it is done in a very dignified way. Do you have membership? Have you paid up the amount? Only person who can pay a certain amount is allowed entry into the club. So there is a certain protocol even in dealing in the club. So they have so many things. Therefore in Bhagavad Gita, in response to Arjuna's reluctance to fight, Krishna reminds him, and through him each one of us, to know the glory of the soul and see things with a spiritual perspective, to resolve the complexities of life. He asks Arjuna the question, Kutascha kashmalam idam. This is how he begins his advice to Arjuna. From where has this contamination come in you? And what is that contamination he is referring to? The bodily concept of life. Arjuna is reluctant to kill his own relatives, to kill his own guru. Then Krishna is pointing out, Natvevaham na tujatam natvam neme janadipaha na chaivam na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamata param. He says each soul is an individual. All these people have been existing even before they came into these bodies, and they are going to exist even after they quit these bodies. So whom are you killing? The soul is imperishable. And there he gives him the knowledge of the soul. So we may wonder, for a person who is on the verge of fighting, what is he talking about the knowledge of the soul? But then this is what Krishna is teaching each one of us. Even in our day-to-day battle of life, struggle for existence, this knowledge is primary and fundamental. To know the difference between spirit and matter. To understand that we are actually spiritual beings with a human experience. We are not human beings with a spiritual experience. That is more important. So, to understand our identity as true spirit souls will reinstate us in our constitutional position. And then we can live life to its full. So, there is a nice story to illustrate this point. We all have heard this story, it is nothing new, but then it is relevant in this context. So, chick is the young one of a bird. So, there were many young ones of a hen, and along with them, the young one of an eagle was also there. That egg also hatched over there and was growing up with those same chickens. Now, the habit of the chickens is they bend down and they peck the grains. So there was one sage who was watching this, and he found that this chick, which was the young one of an eagle, was among these chickens, and he was also bending down and picking the grains. But he found this is unnatural to his natural tendencies. So immediately he went, caught hold of that chick, which was the young one of an eagle. He just turned his neck skywards and showed him that, see, the vast expanse of the sky. This is your natural home. This is where you're supposed to fly freely. And the moment that chick saw the vast expanse of the sky, he became so jubilant, he was reminded of his inherent nature. He reinstated in his constitutional position and he took to his flight. And he was his natural self, not what he should not have been. This is exactly our position in this material world. Whereas we have to delight in the soul, we are actually getting absorbed in the bodily pleasures. And like the chickens, we are looking downwards, whereas we have to be actually looking upwards towards the Supreme. And that is what acharyas like Prabhupada have come to guide fallen souls like us, to turn our head skywards, to give us and enable us to relish the sweetness of the holy name and get ourselves reinstated in our constitutional position. And our constitutional position is Jivera Swarup Hoy Nityera Krishna Das. To always engage in the loving service of the Supreme Lord. And that kind of a pleasure which it releases in the heart is incomparable to any of the other pleasures. Just yesterday, our group who is doing distribution at the Viti stall, they were messaging vigorously at night. They crossed the mark of 100 books. And earlier also they had crossed the mark of 100 books. So then they came. So I said, now today we should make at least 108. And they say, we are on 102. Please pray that we should reach 108. And soon they had crossed 108, they came to 109. And they touched 116, 116. There was such jubilation among the devotees over there. What is this? You have sold 100 books, so what? How much money has gone into your pocket? Not a single paisa. Then what are you so happy about? Did you get gold? Did you get a certificate? What happened to you? Nothing. The sheer joy of giving Prabhupada's books. This is how Krishna reciprocates when you engage in his devotional activities. This is how Prabhupada encourages his devotees when they actually want to serve him sincerely. The kind of pleasure that it triggers in the heart is unfathomable when you engage in devotional activities. And that is what sustains a person also in devotional life. So this is the proof that this system actually works. Then it has got its inherent potency. There is another aspect to this particular incident which looks a little hard to digest. Nanda Maharaj goes into the water, but then a servant of Varun Dev comes and actually arrests him and takes him away. Even his body is not available. They are not able to find him. How is this possible? Have you ever come across this kind of a situation in our day-to-day life? So we consider this to be something very mystical, something which is beyond our understanding. And then sometimes people therefore confuse and they say, oh, this Bhagavatam, maybe this is part of mythology, it may not be true, maybe it is not factual statement of facts. But it is not so. Because what is mystic? Mystic means that which a spiritually evolved soul can see and do, but an ordinary soul cannot see or do. That is the only difference. What a teacher can see, a student may not be able to see. So, we have A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. And he was not just a philosopher and a guide, but also a highly elevated soul. And he had in him great amount of mystical potencies. But the beauty is, in presenting Krishna consciousness to this scientific world, he chose not to highlight on this mysticism, but rather to give scientific facts and guide them in such a way to show them the practical application, give them the taste of the holy name, and engage them in the devotional service in a proper way. But then, nonetheless, we have some instances where his mystical potencies are revealed. But even at that time, he has taken care to say that please don't speak about this to anybody. So once during a morning walk in Juhu Beach, Srila Prabhupada was talking to his disciples, headed by Brahmananda Maharaj. On the way, a dog was barking so much incessantly. Srila Prabhupada and the disciples did not bother much, but continued on the way. The dog wouldn't stop barking. It kept going ahead of Srila Prabhupada and barking in front of him. Srila Prabhupada took his walking stick, pointing the tip towards it, and said, "Hut." The dog became silent. So they continued, and after some time turned back to return. Again this dog ran towards Srila Prabhupada and barked. It did not stop at all. Srila Prabhupada and the disciples were unable to talk. It was barking. Srila Prabhupada stopped for a while, observed the dog, and after that closed his eyes. He took his stick, pointing the tip towards the dog's face, and said, "Hut," with a focused eye. The dog fell down silent, and this time it died. Srila Prabhupada, without talking to anyone, walked back to his room. He did not come down for the Govindam Adipurusham. The devotees were all shocked on what happened. They requested Brahmananda Maharaj to visit Srila Prabhupada and ask him. So Maharaj went to his room and asked Srila Prabhupada, on what happened. Srila Prabhupada replied gravely. The dog said, "I was a devotee in my past, but somehow I have got this body of a dog and I am unable to bear this. It is so miserable. Please help me. Please deliver me. I am your servant," and so on. It kept asking. So Srila Prabhupada prayed to the Lord and delivered it back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada said this and stopped and told him, no need to explain these things. Apparently, a very rich man had seen this, and he understood Srila Prabhupada had powers to cure anything. He had a mad son, only son who can get cured if Srila Prabhupada can help him. He approached Brahmananda Maharaj and asked him to help. He told him he would give whatever Swamiji wanted. Brahmananda Maharaj asked Prabhupada about this. Prabhupada told him, "I can cure him, but ask the rich man to write all his wealth in ISKCON's name." Brahmananda Maharaj was a little surprised, but he told the rich man. The rich man thought for a while and said, "I can write, but what's the guarantee Swamiji will cure? Let him cure, then I will write." When Brahmananda Maharaj asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada refused, saying, he will not write. By karma, the rich man has to suffer because of this. If the son is cured, he will cheat, and he did not want to get involved in this. So we understand that he had the ability to understand the language of animals. This we have heard many times. But here is a direct illustration. He had actually the ability to see through, to actually penetrate and go to the soul. Not deceived by the outer coverings. And therefore he was able to guide the misdirected civilization to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is why we are so safe and secure in the shelter of a special messenger of the Lord who has come to actually rescue us. The chapter is Krishna Rescues Nanda Maharaj. So this is an act of rescue which Prabhupada is doing for fallen souls like us. So we should be eternally grateful for what we are getting in ISKCON and take up to this process of chanting of the holy name. Make it with our heart and soul, and that alone will suffice for us. We don't have to go in any complicated way and do any complicated things. For the age of Kali, it is said, the only real tapasya is to stay with the devotees. It is not to go into the forest or not to do anything else. Staying with the devotees is the biggest tapasya. So somehow we have to remain in the association of devotees, chant the holy name, read the books of Prabhupada, and therefore this book marathon is so important. Profusely distribute the books of Srila Prabhupada. Whoever gets these books is a blessed soul. There was one small incident which happened yesterday at the CST stall. There was one person who came along and he was approached by one of our devotees, Manisha Agarwal. She said, please, ye kitab lijiye. That man was reluctant to take the book. So she told him, he said, dekhiye, padhiye, it is very nice. Then when he was being again and again told, very respectfully he said, मैं ये किताब नहीं ले सकता हूं. So she said, what is the matter? Then he said, I am a Muslim, so I cannot take this book. She said, but there is no harm in taking this book. He said, no, my daughter is going to get married very shortly. But if I take this book and go to my house, my biradri, that is my kinsmen, they will take severe objection. It can have such serious repercussions that even the daughter's marriage can break. So please try to understand in what a delicate situation I am. So she relented. She said, fine. Then he added, he said, but let me tell you, I have great respect for Bhagavad Gita. In fact, I am a student of Bhagavad Gita. In fact, I have got a copy of Bhagavad Gita. And that copy of Bhagavad Gita is in Pandharpur. And I don't tell my family, I say I have some work and I go to Pandharpur. And there I go to my friend's house and read the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita's glories are unlimited. Hare Krishna. Hare Bo. Thank you very much. Hare Bo. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki